There's Erica.
Erica.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Erica.
Hi. Hi. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Thank you.
Good. Good. Excellent.
I'm just looking to see if I can.
Good to go. Erica. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi. How are you feeling?
Oh, that's me. Oh, okay.
Okay, we're all set and live.
Excellent. So thank you for joining us at the August 13th Standing Board of Education meeting. We call the meeting to order at 7:01. Would you like to take attendance, please? You're muted.
Kate,
Joining us at the
Kate,
August 13th Standing
Here.
Board of Education meeting. We call the meeting to order at 7:01.
one moment. Let me
Would you like to take attendance,
deal with
please?
that.
You're muted.
Okay.
Is that the live feed coming through?
I just had to take care of that. Okay, we have Kate here, Kristen, Arica, Megan, and Chris, as well as Amy and Adam for now.
Excellent. So this time we can join each other to raise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all. I think Kathy is joining us as well. Kathy, can you hear us?
Might just take a minute for her stuff to try.
Right, okay. Our next item is citizens' comments. We did receive a question from April Florence. Her question was, will the CSEA non-certified staff be kept whole regardless of whichever reopening plan is made for the 2020-21 school year? Staff members are anxiously awaiting a response. Thank you.
Okay, and since this is a write-in question, I would like to make a response. And the response is that schools in Connecticut were closed in mid-March 2020 due to COVID-19. Non-certified staff followed a furlough process. On March 31st, 2020, Executive Order 7R by the governor required school systems to continue to pay non-certified salaries. Rather than making a prediction for the future, we must wait for guidelines from the governor during these challenging times due to COVID-19. We can't predict the future.
Okay. So do you have that noted, Dee Dee? Well, thank you, Adam. If there are no other comments, correct, that came through, citizens' comments?
No other comments.
Okay. Now that we've addressed that, we'll move on to any guests. We have no guests today. All right, lots of other topics to cover. Moving on to the consent agenda. We all had a chance to eyeball that. Are we all in favor of approving it as presented? We have a motion,
Motion.
Second.
second by Kristen. That the board approves the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Yeah, aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, moving to administrative reports, we'll take the principal report first, Amy.
Okay, so I sent my report to Adam and Dee Dee yesterday because I had done some other communication prior to this report here. My report this month explains what happened from spring of 2020 and then entering summer of 2020 and the pieces that we are working on now. So as far as summer 2020 goes, we are working on technology and acquiring Chromebooks and upgrades and professional development pieces to help our teachers plan for both virtual and in-person instruction. Our director of maintenance, Brian Callio, and I have worked very closely this summer preparing our building for a student return. He and his 4 custodians, his custodial staff this summer, have done a tremendous job cleaning and working in our building, getting it ready, prepping it, removing items of furniture. And so that's a huge piece that has been done and worked on throughout the summer. Our food service director, Tom O'Connor, he's been in close contact with myself and Mr. Burrows. We've been talking about how we're going to be delivering meals for remote students, and if we are on a plan where if we're not in school, how are we going to be delivering meals that way? We've continuously worked to update our website. It's constantly updated with new information. Anything I send out, I do put on there for anyone to look and check. I would also like to, at this point, just say a thank you to Darlene Laranger and Rachel Ricard. They work very hard in the summertime, putting together all of our orders. And they've worked since the beginning of the shutdown. And I just wanted to thank them for all their efforts in helping us still continue in our school system. A couple other things to know. We are currently, I talked a little bit about in my principal's report about our transportation. So we are in the process of gathering transportation information, especially from high school students, if they will need busing. We have to work to coordinate 7 different high schools, and I keep saying this over and over again, and it's difficult because their plans don't all match each other. So we are working to coordinate all those plans and figure out who needs transportation. The elementary is a lot easier. They're just coming to us, so it makes it a lot easier. On one last note, the Youth Service Bureau held a great kayaking event with Allison Page a couple weeks ago. It was an awesome event. They had a great time with Ness, and they kayaked together, and it was really positive. So hopefully in the future we can have a few more events like that for kids to take part in. Anybody have any questions about my report?
I'm sure we'll have lots more when we discuss this COVID-specific stuff, so.
That's
thank
why
you
I
for-
tried to keep that short, that report right there.
Yeah, no, that's great. The brief update on the
Yeah.
other matters at hand, right?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, well, thank you for that. And thank you so much personally for all that you do
Yes.
day in and day out and night in and night out and week in and week out, just to keep things up and running and up to date and on the website. And, you know, currently everything's changing all the time. So I appreciate all the efforts you put in to keep our parents informed and keep us informed and
We got to keep the ship moving. That's what we're doing.
yes, and keep your staff well informed and everything. Yeah.
We'll just keep throwing water out of the boat. We're okay. We're okay.
Yeah. For the record, thank you. Okay, so I don't see you here. So Adam, do you have any updates on
Amy's going to give it.
student services? Okay.
Yep. So Lloyd is
Oh, thanks.
not here tonight, but I will give his report on behalf of him.
Oh, thanks,
He
Amy.
Yeah, he has had, I believe, 172 meetings to date that he has chaired. Over the summer, one of the largest things for our special ed department was actually delivering extended school year services to students who require them based on their IEP. It was extremely successful. He noted how much the teachers that had participated in that, it was extremely successful. They loved being able to be one-on-one with a lot of those students and able to help them progress. We actually also had an in-person tutoring session that happened on campus, and we had followed all of the protocols for summer school, and this particular student attended with one of our teachers. It was extremely successful, really a positive light in this during this time, just to see that it is possible, and the things that we had done to keep them both safe were successful and worked for us. So it was a great turnout. They learned a lot during this time, but kudos to them because they were able to jump in and change and work towards getting those kids a little bit more normalcy that they're used to. And I think that's it for Lloyd.
Well, I did appreciate seeing some of the firsthand comments from some of the
Yeah.
teachers. That was, helpful color just to, get a sense for their experience as well.
Yes.
Thank you for including that. Okay, Adam, the superintendent's report.
Yes, you have my calendar of events for August and September. The enrollment report, we have 256 pre-K through 8th grade students right now. There's 136 high school students. We've had some new high school registrations this summer. Just yesterday, I worked with a student who has moved from the Killingly Ag School to Three Rivers Magnet School. And I called the student and I said, we do supply tuitions to the magnet schools, but we do not supply transportation. And so they said that they would supply their own transportation. So that is acceptable. And we do have some elementary students who go down to New London and the parents supply the transportation, but we have supplied the tuition. That's the guidelines for the magnet schools. The projected cost for summer school, you had it in the packet, was $13,209, but the actual cost was $11,605.87. Usually this cost about $20,000 a year, but this summer we used distance learning and we were not supplying such items as transportation, a school secretary, and a school nurse. So in actuality, the distance learning model did save us some money. That's usually paid for by some Title I and REAP grant money, a little bit of Board of Ed money, but we had some savings on that. The Board of Ed receives grants, and as of today, we've returned $1,773.80 to the town. I expect that to grow. In your packet is the CADE policy highlights. And each school year, we are required to post an update of required annual due process notifications. And this will be on our website. We also include policies in our newsletter. Last year, this report was 10 pages long. Now this year, it's up to 12 pages long. And this is just the continued increase of state and federal mandates that require the Board of Education to constantly update, edit new policies, regulations. And if somebody wanted to use the word unfunded mandates, that might be appropriate too. Another policy highlight was distributed to the Board of Ed in the packet. Health assessments and immunizations. Flexibility remains for school meal services. That's how we did the grab and go breakfast this summer. And then new COVID-related policies developing with testing waivers appear unlikely. They waived the SBAC testing this last spring, but it's very unlikely that they would waive the SBAC test scores for this coming spring in 2021. There's a State Department of Education public health letter regarding the importance of immunizations. And as a verbal report, Kathy Dempsey, the CFO of the State Department of Education, emailed superintendents earlier today that she's saying that she's working to have direct appropriation for COVID-19 funding requests sent to districts, and she hopes to release this tomorrow. So we might know how much money we might be receiving from the state. I'm not sure, but I think this is the one where I put in for $565,000. The governor, it looked like he was funding 10% of the total requests. So we'll see what happens with the allocations tomorrow. And then, of course, the applications for the actual funding will be sent out next week. So what we're doing is, these are funds that I'm not sure if we're going to be able to withdraw the funds or if we have to return it to the town for money that we've spent. So that's, the next edition will be at the September meeting of the Board of Education. I also included the chain of command for 2020, 2021. And this annual chart visually displays the responsibilities of administrators and the assigned faculty and staff positions. So it gives you an idea of how we report, and generally speaking, if somebody is in that administrator's direct line on the chain of command, the administrator usually evaluates them as well. The Board of Education review of the 2019-20 budget will have to be scheduled for September 10th, the next meeting. There have been many expenses related to preparing for the safe opening of school. And you know, this has required us to make transfers and do other things. We were almost there, but I decided to delay that for the board in September. And then after the board approves that, that's when we develop the 6-year summary of all the actual expenditures. And this is very helpful in the board with making decisions about the budget. I think that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Adam on his reporting?
I have a quick question, although this might be for Amy as well. I noticed in the faculty staff assignment that you included for us that I noticed any speech language teachers listed as well. It looks like
Megan, there's a chat feature down at the bottom.
First grade teacher. Could we just have a brief update on that?
That's new business number 6. On the agenda, that's new business number 6. And we'll be talking about that later. I could go in and try to lift that report now, but if it would be okay to wait until we're in new business. Did we lose Megan?
Looks like she froze up.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't know if you can hear me.
A little bit. You might want to call in, Meg. I don't know.
Wow.
Well, you've got a couple agenda items, Megan, to get the question put together for that item number 6. I think.
But that information is coming, Megan.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you. Okay.
That we could hear really well, Megan. Item, the committee reports item, Adam, we don't need to go through that, right?
We did those.
Right, okay. So we'll move on to old business. Item number 1 is the budget preparation timeline and process for 2021 and 2022.
And again, this just shows the sequence of events for developing the 21-22 budget. If there's anything that people want to add in for topics at any time, we can always add that into our budget development timeline. Other than that, I'm all set.
Okay, great. That's good to just see the outline. So as board members, we can maybe next meeting, if we need to insert a topic or ask questions, we can, but at least we have it here. Okay, item number 2, COVID-19 update.
Yes, I included a memo from Amy. It's just one that went home to parents. Some of you have already seen it. That's an informational type of thing. And then also there's a note from the CIAC with the sports program update. I will tell you this, that I attended a rather lengthy meeting midday today, and the CIAC is meeting again and we'll have some updated information. If anything, I think that there's information coming out and you know, there's new developments all the time about the sports program. And my comment at the meeting today was, look, we've been receiving all sorts of memos. And even with this memo, I wrote the date up at the top. And I requested that if they're sending information out, please put your name on the bottom with a date, because things are changing so quickly. And there's going to be some news releases about this, maybe tomorrow or over the next few days. But we do have a motion later on for sports that I request the board to meet. Now, it's interesting because preschool, I gave you, we sent out, Rachel sent you the updated reopen plan. And it has just been slightly updated, and Amy and I will go through some of the things that happened. But one of the things is we increased the membership to add Tula Weiland to the committee. And the reason for that is was increased because we needed representation from our school readiness program. And the school readiness program is under the jurisdiction of the Office of Early Childhood, not the State Department of Education. And any of the decisions that the board makes, it's in support of the School Readiness Council. So therefore, our School Readiness Council will schedule a meeting to approve the preschool reopen schedule, which will also comply with our school policies and regulations. And Amy, today you registered 11 preschool students, so the enrollment is up to 30 right now. I think the preschool is going to have. Why don't you talk about your this? Oh, Amy disappeared. Well, the preschool is going to be a combination of remote and in-school learning. And they have to break the cohorts down. They're going to start school. We're not going to supply transportation because of the COVID requirements. We're going to start preschool a little bit after these other students come in. And then there's going to be cohort A, a group of students Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday and Friday for cohort B. Amy, do you have some additional information to add to that?
Nope, and our purpose with cohorting them and starting a little bit later is to make sure that we are able to clean and sanitize their rooms. Preschoolers will not wear masks when they're inside their classrooms or when they're outside. And they will wear them upon entering and coming to school and into the building and through our hallway. But we wanted to make sure that we felt comfortable with bringing preschool back and allowing cohort A a Monday and Tuesday option and cohort B a Thursday and Friday option, and be able to effectively clean and sanitize the classrooms for them. Based on busing, our elementary kids were unable to bus our preschool kids because of the timing, especially it impacted early dismissal days with high schools that we have to pick up our high school kids on early dismissal days. They get back to school right at 12:30. The buses will have to be cleaned, and then they get back on those buses and go out to their homes. Then the buses have to come back. Preschool would not have been able to been part of that because of the bus run. So I feel confident in bringing our preschool back and being able to have them in our school, even in a limited capacity. There's a 15-minute window for parents to drop off and pick up. So that's going to help us alleviate and lessen a lot of our cars coming in and kids leaving at that time for preschool.
What does that make when you break down to cohorts? What does that make, the class size look like for that A cohort, for example?
We have some parents who want to stay registered, but be part of preschool still and opted for distance learning and learning activities through our preschool. It's probably going to be in our cohorts with 2 teachers each. I would say probably 10 kids in each, just depending if they're choosing to come back or not. I have heard from some, but not all. So, people are still waiting to make a decision about, sending preschoolers back.
Will the preschool program be in? Sorry, can you hear me? Did I go?
Can you just repeat that, Megan?
Yeah, will the preschool program be limited to in-town students? I know in the past we've gone out of town. Will it remain in town right now?
Our preschool program, in order to fulfill our slots, we have to, our group, our school readiness group votes to allow non-residents in. So we have a few non-residents on our wait list at this time. And we have non-residents who were with us last year that make up that 30 students. We actually have 44 slots to fill. And even with those on our wait list, we still are still be looking to fill those 44.
The taking in non-residents is actually a savings to the Board of Education budget because our grant is written for 44 students, and that gives us the $198,000 allocation. If we were to say 10 non-residents couldn't come, then we would have to find $45,000 in the school budget someplace to pay for the preschool program. So that's why we have done that. We don't supply transportation to families of non-resident students. And if there's a resident that comes in, the last in non-resident knows that they cannot remain in the program. So Voluntown students receive priority. If you look at we'll monitor our enrollment report because we do keep a list. But when the board made the decision to do that, we found that as a money-making, as a way to help with funding the whole program, because we would still have enough students for 2 teachers, and we would still have to pay for the teachers and the support.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I just, the more students that we bring in, the more chance that somebody's going to bring COVID into the building, and then that affects all of our students. So, that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm not saying, we have to completely overhaul it, but I will say it is a big concern to potentially impact the education of all of the Voluntown students for an out-of-town student.
Amy, the arrival dismissal, we have that separated for the preschool program. Can you explain that?
Yes. Yep, so our arrival and dismissal for our pre-K kids will be after our arrival for our kids who are for our elementary kids. So we project our arrival for elementary will end by 9, and our preschool arrival would begin the earliest at 9, between 9:15 and 9:30.
Will the preschool use the outdoor equipment, the gym, things like that?
So preschool,
No matter, I mean, it's a good plan, but no matter what, there's always going to be that risk of that cross contamination.
and I think that, in keeping in mind that whether it's a non-resident or a resident, I think it's a risk in general when you're having, kids come back. To fulfill our slots in our program, that's why we take kids from outside in order to fulfill that funding for those teachers and those parts of our classroom. I think that, with the measures we have in place and limiting them to, the 2 cohorts, I think we can hopefully be successful in being able to maintain the cleanliness of those 2 classrooms. They will just be in their classrooms. They will be outside. They won't be outside at the same time at recess as, everybody's having different times. So I'm hopeful that we're successful in being able to keep them still having a program and still being able to fund our program through that measure. The Office of Early Childhood has strict guidelines on their request for funding, and it's all changed now post-COVID. After the spring is typically when we do it, but now it's a little bit different. There's a little bit more stricter regulation on how you can get your funding. So by maintaining our 44, we can hope then to maintain the following year the same number of students and get that allocation for that money for those spaces.
Amy, how many non-residents do we have to recruit every year in order to maintain the 44-ish?
I would say on average, probably about 15. I'd say maybe 15 would be my average guess if I was to think
Kristen,
about it.
this year, we're projecting 18. Last year, we had 14. The year before, we had 13. And the year before, we had 9. So yes, we do have a declining enrollment. And at some point, we may have to make a decision about the continuation of non-residents.
That's
But-
kind of where I was going, because working in a prior district where I worked in a magnet school and I had to recruit, there's a lot of effort and time that it takes an admin to do that. Like, I think that your time would be spent better elsewhere. Not that I don't care about other communities, but you know what I mean? We have one administrator taking care of pre-K to grade 8. Eventually, I think our board needs to re-examine if 2 pre-K classes are appropriate for our little community, or should we do a mixed 3-4? Obviously, special education placement is the forefront of that, but it might be something we should visit in the future.
Yeah.
And my thing with this is, I don't feel comfortable talking about it from a perspective of money, and my question is coming strictly from a safety standpoint, an education of Allentown students, the safety of Allentown students. That's the number one priority. The money coming, I know it's taxpayers have to foot the bill. I totally get that. And I think I've advocated for that as well. But these questions are strictly coming from a safety and education for Allentown students. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that that's where I'm coming from with that.
And believe me, if we reduce the numbers on the grant, the state will willingly put the money into other communities. So that's one of the things that we would have to look at. And of course, we're looking at all of the safety features, and a lot of time was spent, even to the point where a little later we'll talk about an extra temporary custodian to clean playscape equipment and to clean the room between, as quickly as possible to make sure that we're practicing cleanliness. And even traffic patterns, all dealing with safety, and even waiting areas for parents and contacts. So there are many, many safety things The money is something that I like to explain because people might not understand why we're having non-residents come. But if the Board of Ed chooses not to have non-residents come, then we will have to increase the budget in other areas to make up for that.
Yeah, and I think you just need
I
to
also think
add it.
we can look at the people around us. The other towns all have very low rates of COVID right now. Other than Plainfield that has an outbreak in their town hall, the other towns are just like us in our surrounding area with a low number. And I think cutting those students out would be a real problem. In that you wanted to cut the budget last year. How do we cut the budget and lose $50,000, Megan? From even, it's safe from a health point if you really understand the public health views. I think probably because your child maybe is in, we're all worried about our kids going back. They're going back to NFA. Families have kids going to all 3 different schools. So we're mixing with a lot of people as we go back. Everybody is.
Well, just from an economical standpoint, if we discontinue the non-residents for this year, that would require us to find $81,000 in our school budget to make up the difference.
I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking
yeah.
about in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Might be something I don't want our administration spending all their efforts recruiting people from other communities when she can be worrying about curriculum and assessment and evaluation and things of that nature instead of going to other communities.
Mhm.
But this year, not realistic because we already have that grant funding and we would have to be retroactive in that. So I'm not saying this year, but in the future, it might be worth a conversation.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think you just need to have a really clear plan. If we end up having to close the school because of an out-of-town resident or something along those lines, it's going to be a real problem for this community. So that's going to come back on us. It's going to come back on you guys. So I think, you know, I can honestly say, you know, aside from having my own child in the school, which is obviously a concern for me, I just think that this is a really kind of, you know, it's kind of a risky thing, and risk reward, you know, I don't know. I just wanted to put it out there that it was a genuine concern and see, you know, kind of what the thought process on it was.
And I think you're right, Megan, in the aspect of, you know, the school readiness committee does have control of who we allow to come in and not. I do think that we will probably have to monitor. It's very close, as Kathy said, it is communities that are near us, typically people who are close that drive in. But I think it is just something to keep in mind. If there's a spike in those communities, that is something to keep in mind, because I think that's where you're going. If that's where, you know, if we're allowing kids from those communities in, is that going to have a negative impact on our kids that are in school or in preschool or in those classrooms? Yeah.
I have just a logistical question. So you broke it down to 2 days. That third day, is that a distance learning expectation day, or is it just a 2-day preschool program?
So it will be the 2 days that they are provided, and we will provide the rest of the week of just learning activities that they can do at home. So they'll have 2 days of being able to do that, and then they'll have 3 days of items that they can do at home, and be part of and continue with their learning. Because for some of our kids who were with us last year, you know, they're used to going 5 days, and now they're cut down to 2. So I think that, you know, as we see numbers change and regroup, I think that there will be a lot of potential changes to preschool as we go on through the year. Kids who keep coming, kids who decide not to come, and those differences for preschool.
That clarifies it. Thank you.
Now we're moving on with the reopening update, and this is for the K through 8 section of the school. Governor Lamont and Commissioner Cardona have now made the hybrid model an option for school districts, where at the time we initially had to submit a plan, the hybrid model was not an option. And the previous directive required a full opening of all students returning to school. Moving to the hybrid model at VES means Wednesday will be a distance learning day with students remaining at home. And all but one of the partnering schools with NFA is going with the hybrid model, and they're taking Wednesday as a distance learning day, as are many of the high schools. This enables us to reevaluate our procedures midway, plan and design instructional models utilizing the resources in the classroom, working with teaching groups and maximizing learning opportunities by providing remote learning experiences. Hopefully the state will not need to close school again, but in the event that it happens, our faculty and students will have time on Wednesday to update their skills in distance learning, and they'll be able to work together so that if they do have to make a transition to distance learning, they've had opportunities to use it. Starting the first week, early dismissal, students will be provided with orientation lessons of new procedures, review practices that will be different, and become acclimated to wearing a mask, focusing on building relationships. The staff will spend the remainder of the day, and this is that first week of school when we get to the calendar that we're proposing that will be early dismissals. And the staff will spend time in the afternoon reflecting on lessons learned and work with improving, any protocols or other things. Our night custodial crew will do regular cleaning on Tuesdays and on Wednesdays, but will complete thorough cleaning of high touch areas and bathrooms and hallways for students on the other days. This is in addition to the daytime custodians cleaning of classroom supplies and desk shields, recess equipment, and other high frequency areas on Wednesday. It can't be emphasized enough. The information flow within school reopening changes weekly, if not daily. While this may be frustrating, please note that we are doing the best we can to address the changes and make informed decisions about the Voluntown schools. So this means that as we open, we're going to be planning activities and structure them for a safe return. Amy is using weekly Q&A submitted to her, and she'll continue with her videos. And we just sent out a high school survey regarding transportation and also for the preschool readiness program so that we can look at the needs of the community. With the 7 high schools, designated high schools, we want to know what parents might be driving their students, what students might be opting for remote learning, and how we can best accommodate those routes. The high school, we're going to have all of our students in on Monday, K through 8, Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday will be distance learning, then all of the students will come back Thursday and Friday. Now, we're able to do that because of the board decision that you made when we completed the budget. Our largest class size was going to be 4th grade. And at first, back in January, we thought we could get by with 1 teacher, but we kept that class in 2 sections. And because the board made that decision, this is allowing us to have the 4th graders come in for 4 full days. And our class sizes are small enough at this point that we have enough distance to meet social distancing requirements in classrooms. Now, the high schools, they have half of their students coming in on Monday and Tuesday, and then the other half coming in on Thursday and Friday. But that's more of a transportation issue. So the reopen plan. we sent you an update with the plan. You can see that I'm going to be very diligent about putting the date of the plan. So the date of the plan says as of August 13th, 2020. That's to reflect that that's the most recent plan that the board approved. The other thing is we added Tula's name. We added some activities about how you can check your child before they are coming into school. We added some Uncas Health District protocols, and there were a couple of other minor changes that the committee involved. You have that plan, and what we'd like to do is have the board make a motion to approve the August 13th, 2020 update of the reopen plan. And because of that, we can post this on the website so that parents can go and check what's happening.
I
That's-
don't really think we need the Wednesday distance learning because of the small class sizes you mentioned, the ability to social distance, all the hard work from everybody involved, getting the school ready and planning how to handle these students. It's just, and even prepping the kids in case distance learning comes around, if COVID increases, that could be done in person as well. I think it's more important to have the continuity of education in the school building 5 days a week, with the cases now as low as they are, and the plans you all have put into place are minuscule class sizes. I think the risk is very much mitigated.
Okay, there's the meeting that I attended with today. We had our plan for the full reopening, but the reopen committee reviewed this and thought, at least at the start, it would be good to check out all systems, Christopher, to see how they're working and to make sure that the students have their Chromebooks at home and what's happening. So there's that connectivity that's there that we have to think about. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that we received a request, there might be some more funds available, and the survey that I put in asked for 10 hotspots around town because we found that there were parents that did not have Wi-Fi access. So the reason for the Wednesday is to check all those systems and to make sure that people have access and that we're fully operational. Now, we don't have to go, all fall in 4 days a week, but the committee kept on reviewing this and they came back to the fact that we want a way that we can check this. And that's why we thought that it would be important to start off school. Some of the plans are stating that they're putting timelines on it. One school district said the Wednesdays for the next 6 weeks. Other people have other timelines. There's only 3 school districts in the region right now that are going full. And at the Tuesday meeting, when I was bringing this up to the reopening committee, we were going all 5 days. But the committee really felt that it was important to give this Wednesday a try. So it allows us to check our systems. So that was one of the things that we were looking at.
Another point to
I
note.
think-
Sorry, Kathy, I just wanted to say, another just nuance of that is that when you take that day to check your systems and log in and try to connect on a real live basis to school as you would if we were all remote. If you do have those problems, you come back Thursday and you have that connection with your teacher and you figure it out and you troubleshoot, and they get the feedback as quickly as they can to help you succeed that next time we need to go distant. So I really, that hung true to me as a committee member as well, like just having that back and forth live experience with that Wednesday made sense. So,
Oh, I think it's a good idea having the Wednesday because it'll give kids a chance to keep up those skills, because at any moment they may have to go back to just all online learning. as the winter goes on. And if they're not doing it routinely, if Wednesdays they're always doing some work online, they'll be in the motion of doing it and people's machines will be up to date, like you said, ready to go. Because the third week of school, we may be going all online. You never know what's going to happen with this during the year. And in the winter, we may very well be online because they're saying another big outbreak.
But wouldn't
Yeah,
it
I
make
agree.
sense?
I think
to
keeping
have
in
them-
good practice with that is the way to go. We need to keep practicing on both ends, being in school doing the best we can, and also keeping our skills developed and ready to go for those Wednesdays. I think there needs to be something on both ends for sure.
Yeah, I think
And
I
they'll
think
also
we're
do good cleaning.
yeah, but we're missing the element of kids that have parents that work, right? I mean, so you're relying on the fact that a student has somebody at home that can help them with those things, whereas, that's just not the reality of many of our families in the community. The other thing is, if we think there is a chance that we may end up going back to an online learning, wouldn't we want to get as many days in the classroom as we can before we go back to that? I mean, we're basically taking one day when we have, it sounds some pretty good systems in place. We have small class sizes. It sounds like we have the advantage and the opportunity to keep them in the classroom. I just think we've talked in past board meetings about having them in the classroom as much as we can because we don't know what's going to happen. So
The other thing is the surrounding towns, they have plans where half the students are coming in on Monday, Tuesday, then Wednesday is a distance learning, then the other half of the students are coming in on Thursday and Friday. And because of what we did with class sizes, our students are coming in for all 4 days rather than just 2. So there's a benefit for that. But we had everybody coming back full time, but then as the reopen committee reviewed this, there was, Amy, a very strong feeling that, the Wednesday could be used very wisely.
I think initially, and just saying this for now, in my mind, the hybrid is not forever. And it is for a short period of time. I think staff are going to need to be able to reacclimate at least a couple weeks just to be able to get back into that place of being able to balance. We're asking people to balance virtual instruction and in-class instruction. And I think having that opportunity to be able to help kids on those Wednesdays be able to change what we need to change in the building for this moment in time is helpful to us. Sorry, that's my child putting something in front of the camera. Is helpful to us in that retrospect. But I do think eventually if we can then go full open, I think then we go full open. I don't think that hybrid is forever, but I think it's a step in getting us back into the classroom, into the routine. We've been out for 5 months. And I think for some parents, it might help with a little bit of the stress of being torn, of do I send my child back 5 days or do I send them back a few days? Is it okay to send them a few days, and kind of easing back into that? And then hopefully, crossing my fingers, eventually going back 5 full days.
So Amy, if that's the intention, is maybe like a 4 or 6 weeks doing that Wednesday off, rather than presenting it as a hybrid model, couldn't we just build that into the school calendar, that for those first 4 or 6 weeks, we just say Wednesday is off, developmental day, or, professional development, or, I mean, I know it's distance learning, but I mean, essentially, if you have a student that has parents that can't help them during the day, I would assume that that child's not going to be penalized for that. It just seems like maybe it would be less of a shock to people after we presented this other plan if we just went more of through the school calendar.
I think if you go through the school calendar, we have to make sure that it's still a student day, though, because then we have to make sure we get to those hours and days that they have allowed us to. So I think I think either way, we knew that we would have to update our hybrid plan because our original hybrid plan wasn't really hybrid. It was hybrid to us in essence on how we were doing it. But then after seeing these other towns come together and be part of this region of having Wednesdays off and providing some of these same opportunities, you know, I'm hopeful that once we get it underway and people's uneasiness maybe comes down a little bit, once we go back full weeks, it'll be a lot easier if we have to switch digital remote because we've had the practice. So I don't know about either building it in the calendar or going hybrid. I'm not sure how. I don't want to put a time on it because what if we can turn back sooner and go full person sooner than 6 weeks, you know?
Yeah, I just think that, you know, and you obviously were a parent, right? Like you understand people can't have that uncertainty of, will next Wednesday my child be at school or not? I just, you know, I know we have to all be flexible and this is like a learning process and all of that, but
my best guess would be to say to parents, my statement would be, I would project hybrid would be 4 weeks. I would hate to say 6 weeks because I would say if we said hybrid was 4 weeks, and then parents can plan for, okay, I know I need someone on Wednesdays for 4 weeks, and then maybe reevaluate health data at that time. Because I think it's also going to depend on health data on what happens if we can move to full in person.
I think it's better to be open-ended on that date that it will be evaluated at, so parents know that this is going to be happening all year, I believe, on and off. There'll be changes coming, and parents have to. We don't know if tomorrow the governor will decide we're back to phase 2 and a number of businesses again will be closed. It can change daily. So parents need to be aware that this is going to be very open. And I believe every other school near us is doing stay. All the high schools, Griswold in stays off. I think everybody is doing this. It's kind of what the standard is of the area right now.
Yes, that is true. Our most, I think all but one maybe.
Well,
yeah, but I do kind of an outlier in the size of our classroom. You know, if we had 25 students in the classroom, then obviously that would be 100% something we had to consider. But we do have the luxury of having those smaller class sizes. So
yes, and that we do. I think we can move in person. Yeah, I think we can move in person hopefully faster than other schools can move in person, full in person.
But you could put a time limit on it to enter into Wednesday as a distance learning day for all students. And then you could say, you know, for, 4 weeks with an evaluation review, and then look and see the board has the right to, continue that or discontinue. We might get into it and we might say, well, we want the kids in the building.
Right.
We see what's happening. So as I said, the plan was originally for the full 5 days, but then as other school districts were coming in and looking at their plans, their hybrid model was Wednesdays.
Wednesday. Yeah.
Boards of Ed have been
So
spending.
am I correct? Wednesday will be a terminal clean day in the school?
Yes.
A big clean day in the school on Wednesdays? All the
So-
custodial staff will be doing end cleaning on Wednesdays and the weekend?
That's what we're planning.
I read this really, really good quote. I wanted to share it with you guys. It was reacting to a superintendent being super cautious. And it said, for the next 3 weeks, in the end, it'll be impossible to know if we overreacted or did too much, but it will be quite apparent if we underreact or did too little. So I'm perfectly fine doing slow is fast and being cautious and easing into this wisely. I'm not looking to do anything fast here.
So Wednesday would be a distance learning, Kristen?
Yes.
No, I was just saying, I support you guys in a slow transition back to regular life. Like, I'm not looking to go quickly into any plan. So I appreciate the Wednesday to clean, to practice, learning online for our smallest children as well as our 8th graders. I appreciate that opportunity. So thank you guys.
After listening to everybody, I could think maybe 2 weeks, preferably one for a Wednesday. I haven't really heard anything that would convince me otherwise to not have the children come back for the full 5 days as originally planned.
I feel like having Wednesday allows us to prepare for the possibility of online learning in the future. And if we pull away from that, I feel that that'd be an abrupt change to the kids and the teachers. And we're going to have that transition period that might be more detrimental because they have to catch up again to virtual learning. And I feel like having the practice of that virtual learning on Wednesday is something that's important for the possibility of another change in the future.
I agree with you completely. The kids need that in learning time. I know my grandson had a terrible time converting to online, and I think Wednesdays would help keep him tuned up. I mean, up at NFA, they're doing Wednesdays as a full day tune-up on. I just think it's important to keep those skills up, and they won't keep up going 5 days a week. And we won't be able to keep that school clean enough going 5 days a week.
Is it a solution to revisit at our next scheduled board meeting?
I think we need to make a decision tonight to inform the parents.
No, I mean, that we make a motion to go hybrid with the Wednesday with the timeline of how long that goes. I mean, I'm on board with giving you the authority to make those changes of when we end and start. But I mean, as a board, if we felt comfortable revisiting it going forward, that this is.
But we're trying to constantly find out how the parents are feeling about things. And Amy did a survey. Amy, how many parents have opted not to return to school, but to do remote learning?
We probably have about 20% of our students that are not that are going to do remote learning as of right now.
Amy, what will be the guidelines for your teachers for that remote learning day? I think the spring, I want to say teachers were kind of made their own plans based on it. Will this be more structured than that?
Yes, so there will be a lot more structure and teaching opportunity. That we also don't want to burn the kids out and having them sit in front of a screen all day for those on that day. We want them to just be able to access some of the activities and things that we've done on Monday and Tuesday on Wednesday, whether it's through Seesaw or Google, or having that opportunity to be on there, and then being able to see their teacher. A lot of struggle is being able to open a Google Meet and making sure you have the right meeting code and making sure your child can get on and see and learn. So that's a big thing that's going to happen. Our big kids are savvy in that, but our little people, it takes time to learn how to do those things. So that'll be a lot more structured for those days. And so when they're not doing that, we are going to be working on, we have to actively prepare and always think in our minds that tomorrow we could be closed. And I think that's the reality of the situation. And having kids 5 full days, we cannot prepare for that. A 45-minute planning period is allowing you to plan and make lessons for in-person learning. And now adding on remote learning, we're also asking teachers to plan for. And now we're asking them to start thinking and planning, how are they, this lesson is meant for in-person kids. If tomorrow these kids don't come back, how am I going to get that online? So I think giving them the opportunity on those Wednesdays to be able to work through and start pre-getting things ready in advance. Unlike the spring where we were working behind the ball, we're hoping to be in front of the ball this time, being able to switch back and forth, crossing my fingers easily as anybody could. So, you know, I think it just, go ahead.
Would you say, how many minutes would you say a teacher is going to be engaged with their students? Is it going to be?
I think it depends on grade level.
Okay, what
my thought would be, if we are distance learning, there would be a math lesson for the appropriate attention span of a kindergartner, and there would be a math lesson for an appropriate attention span for an 8th grader. There's no set rhyme or reason for minutes. A lot of places do it very differently. I just think to what is in their best interest in getting them into that lesson and being able to learn a little bit, and then being off and working with their family. Because a lot of distance learning also relies on, you know, the caregiver, especially when they're young. So just having them familiar with what is that going to look like also.
Yeah, and my concern is that we don't have any of these answers to give people. We don't, you know, the people that work that just absolutely can't do it during the day with their kindergartner, or we have no answers for them, right? So I mean, it's tough to make a decision that, you know, to do that when we don't have that information. And I definitely, you know, coming from personal experience with the spring, you know, my student, he needs that teacher interaction every day that he's, you know, he didn't, you know, because we were just figuring it all out, you know, it was very difficult, and it definitely is going to impact his, or it did impact his education in spring. And I just have that concern going into this, you know, that we're just going to further send these kids behind. And I know there are tons of students that don't need that, but there are tons of students that do as well. And I think, you know,
I think a lot of parents, and I know for me, I would personally, and I know this sounds crazy coming from an educator, but having my kindergartner be on and do her math lesson with her teacher, and then if I have to help her a little bit after, that's great. But doing the lesson and being with that teacher and then having it over, because there's nothing worse than your child being on and learning that lesson, and then you have to spend another hour trying to help them on all the material and all those items. It is so much better, you know, if it's, let's say, I always go to junior high because it's so natural, but let's say a middle school class. If you have a middle school class and it's a 30 to a 40-minute lesson, my vision would be then the remaining 20 minutes of that block per se is those students are working on the other side of that computer and working with their teacher and putting information in the chat. And then when they're done after that hour of time, they're done. Their math for the day is done, you know? So I think those are the pieces that we have to practice. And what does that look like for little kids? And what does that look like for big kids too? And I think affording people the time to be able to do that and work through those things and get kids' stamina up, I think will be helpful in the long run. So long term, I think it'll be helpful for us. I hope we don't ever have to use it, but I don't want to put my rose-colored glasses on and think that it's not ever going to happen.
There are 2 Wednesdays between now and the next regular Board of Education meeting. And I'm sure if we try this, we're going to get a lot of feedback from parents, and the board will come back to this. This is the toughest topic that boards have had. And they've gone back and forth, whether a full reopening or other. But if we try this for 2 Wednesdays and we come back, you know, we could review this again. And then usually, as I said, districts are saying that they wanted to try this and look and see what happens during that first month to assess the success of this. And then they're making decisions on whether to add Wednesday into the mix. So, you know, there's 3 motions related to this portion of the board meeting. And these are the tough decisions. The first
Excuse me, as a parent who worked her whole life, had kids in school, and even now we're still working with grandkids. I would prefer to know something in 4 to 6 week block, not 1 week blocks that every week I'm scrambling and say something's for 2 weeks and then 2 weeks later I'm scrambling. I do think a 4 to 6 week block of time that we set aside and say that this is what we're going to do is easier for parents than doing, oh, we'll update you again in 2 weeks and again in 2 weeks. It kind of keeps everybody hanging. I know from myself, I would rather know, and I realize during this COVID, none of us are going to know for very long. But I think, especially right at the beginning of school, if you have kids going to more than one school, you got kids going to magnet school or high school, etc. Parents are going to be trying to get situated. And if you say, we're going to update you again in 2 weeks, I think you're going to have frustrated parents with 2 week blocks. That's just my opinion on it.
Just looking for just various options, but generally speaking, people are putting down, they're going to try this into October and then make a reassessment at that time. We may start doing this, and Amy may come back and say, look, the faculty is saying we need to, really approach it this way. So we have that flexibility, and certainly, we would make that decision. But whatever the case, at the next board meeting, we would have 2 days experience. And certainly we can review this again at that time. But there are 3 motions related to the reopening. The first is to have you approve the plan as of August 13th. The second would be, if you wanted to do this, reopen VES with a modified hybrid plan for all K through 8 graders to attend school on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, with Wednesday as a distance learning day for students to work with their teachers via the internet to strengthen their overall distance learning skills and capabilities in order to prepare for a possible resurgence of COVID-19. And then the last motion is fall sports and before and after school activities will be canceled due to the focus on the many changes implemented in the school day and to adhere to social distancing and health and safety standards. And there's some school districts, I don't know, high schools that might be starting some practices and stuff, but we want to make sure that we're getting through and making our school day as successful as possible. And you have to understand that we're keeping cohorts together so that students won't be interacting with other grade levels or big assemblies. We're trying to keep everybody as safe as possible. I don't know if you have any questions about any of those, but I wanted the board to document what they did. And the first one is to approve the August 13th, 20 update of the reopen plan.
Just a question on that, Adam. So the reopening plan does include a hybrid description of the second motion?
Yes.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve
I approve my motion.
ARCA, Kristen.
So with this,
Is number 4?
I'm sorry, is this approving the hybrid?
So this
That's
is
the
just, we're
plan
making a
presented.
motion to approve the plan as of August.
You're approving the plan, and there is an approach with a hybrid in there. It's explained, but in the sequence of the plan, it talks about different stages based on the number of COVID cases within the state. So the plan is flexible in that, you have the hybrid, you have, full opening, and then you have closing, closure, hybrid, and then full return. So that's the stages, and that's based on numbers of COVID cases. So
Motion 2 is specific to the hybrid?
yeah, motion 2 is the hybrid, but the plan is what you have, and that's what we've been operating on. And the update is not that much different, but it just talks about, there's 3 or 4 things in there. The big thing is how do you have parents and students, self-check before they're starting the day, and making sure that people are aware, and also with coming into the building and doing things, how do we make sure that we're checking, the health of the children.
Amy, what did you guys decide to do about the travel?
You don't have your, Amy, you don't have your,
About the what?
Sorry. Megan, do you mean travel like families who are traveling out like to hotspot states?
Correct, and making sure that you're aware of that those people are quarantining and things like, or if they have a family member that comes from out of state,
Yes.
or that's a hotspot.
And so, though we can't mandate like the governor for people to report to us, I did say in my Q&A video today too, and my answer is that I need to be communicated with so I know. And anybody who is traveling to those states, if there's a state mandate to quarantine, that
Yes, which is 14 days quarantine, they can come back.
Yeah, so they have to be honest and let us know. We can't help what we don't know. So I'm just asking families to, please let us know, and they have to follow the state mandates of the 14-day quarantine, in which at that, so if they have to travel to a state for whatever reason, and they let us know, we just get that kid on remote learning, so there's no disruption in education. So I'm hopeful that travel will be low, that kids are back in school, and they're back in school most of the week, and hopefully that'll subside.
Can we have them, I know I mentioned last month, maybe including something in the handbook that parents sign an initial each summer, just indicating that, that they'll be transparent with you about that. Obviously, there's no way that, like you said, police it, but just so that it's kind of on the forefront of their minds.
We could add something, whether it's in our handbook or part of something that we send home, that just asking that, because this is real, and this is something that nobody wants their child to go to school and bring COVID. Like nobody's going to want that, So if they're honest with us and say, I've come back, their child can remote learn. I think it's, great to just make it known that we need to know as a school, and it is confidential. And so, because I think sometimes we know people who have COVID, and those people feel embarrassed to tell, and it's not, it's like you have the flu or a little bit worse sometimes. And I think that we just need to know that people are going to get it. Kids are going to get it. And just being honest and saying, we have it as a family. We're not coming to school for 14 days. We've been to whatever. I mean, I looked at the map today. I think only New England is left that's not red. So it's very limited where you can go.
I've lost all audio.
Oh, right. I can still hear you, Kathy. So if that, I would agree, Megan. I think it just needs to be on the forefront of everyone's mind in order to keep their family safe and other families safe. If we can just work together to make sure that we do know, and that we're able to help families if they have to travel to one of those areas.
Yeah, and I just want, believe it or not, I'm sure there's tons of people that don't really keep up with this stuff. I don't know how you can't, but
no.
So I just thought maybe
Hey,
something
Catherine,
from
can you
something
bring
from-
me your phone?
with the school expectation be helpful for people that
Yeah.
may not understand that.
Yeah. And I think for me, we all know that we like to, if your child has a runny nose, you say, okay, you're fine. You can go to school. If your child, coughs a little bit, you say, you're fine. Do not go to the nurse today. Don't call me. That's my mantra. But I think that with this, we actually have to kind of go in the reverse route and just assume that, have we been around somebody? Does anybody else in the family feel sick? Because one person coming in can affect a whole grade level. And granted, right now it may be only 10 kids, but that's 10 kids and a teacher. So we just have to be cognizant and aware And I appreciate our families. I always preach to people on how great Voluntown is. I live in a very large town, and my kids won't be going back to school till September 14th. So now I, as a working parent, have to scramble on what do I do with my children for 2 weeks. But I think just being part of a small town and being able to just say, you know, so-and-so can't come to school, they're able to remote learn. I'd rather have them stay home than come in and just be
Catherine! Kathy, you need to call in, maybe, if that's easier. Okay.
No, it's a square.
I don't know if we've lost a few people here. I think
I'm here. Does anybody have any more
You're here,
questions?
Amy, okay.
I'm here. I don't know. Megan,
Yeah.
Megan has good questions that I can always talk a lot about. So
No,
I in the committee, Megan, it's nuts. So we just sit there and pepper Amy all day long. Like what about
she
this? What about
handles
this?
herself so well. She can take it. So
but I know. I'm used to it now. Just ask away. And sometimes I just don't know the answer.
like, I don't know, but I'll find out. That's what they told me
I
to
know.
say.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Mhm. So we're back to the motions on do you have any other questions on the reopening plan as it stands as of today so that we can post it to make it public to the website as amended, because this is the second version, like 2.0.
So will the motion to indicate that the intention right now is for 4 weeks? And that, you know,
That's the
obviously it's subject to
motion.
change for the board.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Adam.
Okay. That's the next motion, Megan. You're approving the plan, and then the next motion is on the hybrid model.
Right. No, I'm just wondering, does that actually indicate that in there, that it's intended for 4 weeks, or is it just kind of an open-ended?
It's an open-ended, flexible type of thing based on the number of COVID cases.
So there'll be a separate communication to parents about this particular aspect of their week, I would assume.
I mean, we could give we could estimate it, and say that it's projected for 4 weeks, you know, anticipating. I do want people to be able to plan daycare, you know, that is a huge, you know, to get
Absolutely.
somebody. I want people to be able to plan for that and not just plan 1 week at a time. Do we want it? Want me to put that on the plan? I mean, I don't personally have a feeling either way. I could put it as projected, because let's say we get 5 cases the first 2 weeks, we're gonna have, you know, we would have to close. So if we wanted to say projected for 4, at least people that can plan, no sooner than 4 weeks will we turn anything different other than hybrid.
I think that leaves it in every piece of documentation at every level. I think that's fair. Okay, Dee Dee, did you hear that? Or maybe Amy has the documentation anyway for it,
I'll put it in the document before we
Okay.
upload it onto the website.
Okay.
So
this-
sorry,
all
I
right,
was
so-
trying to update things with Kathy, sorry.
That's fine. So we need a motion to approve the August 13th, 2020 update of the reopen plan with
Motion.
the Yeah, with the idea that we're going to make this caveat about hybrid. Okay, motion from Kristen, second from Arca. Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, now.
I'm not opposed.
Are you gonna say aye? You're on the ayes, Megan? Okay. Okay, motion passes. Now addressing the second motion, Adam, is it kind of the same thing that we will reopen with a modified hybrid plan for K through 8th graders, that they follow a in-school Monday, Tuesday, distance learning Wednesday for cleaning and opportunities to strengthen their online learning, and then returning to school Thursday, Friday for the first 4 weeks of school, with further until, we further review. Do we have a motion for that? Okay, Arca, you have a second? Kristen? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Just to confirm, it's specifically intended for 4 weeks.
Intended for 4 weeks with the, extended 2, or it could, if, that's, I mean, we review it at 4, it could extend, but yes.
Okay,
So we have motion,
then I will
Kristen,
vote for.
Use the language with a review of continuation, of the fourth, for 4 weeks, yeah.
Okay, so with,
I'm okay with it with the expectation of 4 weeks. Anything over that, I would not be okay with at this time.
without the information of knowing, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like Amy said, we could come back for 1 week and then close. I mean, that's we know that that's the case. But I think if in 3 weeks we're doing okay, then we really need to get these kids back to school as much as we can, because we won't know what's going to happen.
okay. So we have a motion from Kristen and Arca. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Any abstains?
And then the next motion was,
Motion passes.
the next motion was fall sports and before and after school activities at VES will be canceled due to a focus on the many changes implemented in the school day, and to adhere to social distancing and health and safety standards. And if you want to put a time frame on that, you can, but I think the Department of Health is coming out with a statement, no sports, but I haven't had a confirmation on that. So, but we do not have to have after school activities.
That includes like any type of YSB or
This is for the school.
Chorus.
YSB is a separate group, and they have to decide. I know they did that kayaking thing and they scheduled it once, and they're thinking about October doing a small group activity. But when they do activities, they make sure that it is cleared by the Uncas Health District and following some safety standards. But they're not having groups of larger than 10 students, and they may move some of the things to online. They're just exploring one right now, from what I understand with the meeting yesterday.
So this is just to review sports?
This is sports, yes. Then this is using the school for after-school activities. Once the children have left, we have to devote our time to cleaning the building and making sure everything is healthy and safe.
have a motion for that, that to approve the cancellation of fall sports and any activities within the building after school?
I'll make that motion.
Kristen, okay, all in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Catherine, did you say you're for it?
Yeah,
Okay,
I can go in and ask you.
I didn't hear that, Kathy.
My computer is going in and out.
Can you call?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are moving along out of the COVID motions, I call them. Item number 4 of old business is the Board of Admissions statement. Hopefully you all got my email kind of with just that little tiny, the tweak in the language from what was in the packet. Did everybody see that? I can read it to you. Yeah, okay. The Voluntown Board of Education mission is to provide our students the skills essential to reach their highest potential in a safe environment for learning as they aspire to become responsible, respectful, and civic-minded members of society. We commit to help educate, challenge, and inspire each child to excel as lifelong learners who can adapt constructively in an ever-changing, multicultural, and technological world. Do we have a motion to?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
And second, okay. We have the motion to approve the Board of Admissions statement, 4th reading as orally amended. All in favor, aye? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so next up on the agenda is item number 5, administrative goals, 2020-21. This is a 3rd reading. I'm not sure if we had any more thoughts on this particular.
We really need to approve this tonight because we put these goals in the teacher packet when they're returning, and they use this is a reference for developing their goals as well as the Board of Ed goals. So these administrative goals and the Board of Ed goals are what they used.
Okay, do we have a motion as presented that we approve the administrative goals?
I'll make that motion.
Kristen, she seconded. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 6 is calendar adjustments for 2020-21.
This is a follow through from last month where we talked about having early dismissals the week of August 31st through September 4th. So the first week of school will all be early dismissals, except the Wednesday will now be a social distance learning day.
Any questions on the calendar update? Just curiosity, I guess, in the next, however many weeks it may be, till we start with the clock, is there any any chance that the state might, I mean, we don't know what the state's gonna do, but they, they could come down and say, you're pushed out 2 weeks like they did with.
Absolutely. The governor could get on the microphone tonight and say, we're not starting school until September 14th through an executive order. Yes.
Right.
The governor in Rhode Island did that, I believe. Right, Amy?
Welcome to my life. Yes.
Well, that's what I'm just, I mean, I think we can only use the information we have presently. So we are all comfortable starting on the 31st with our half-day program and the PEs set up with those days and the idea of starting with the Wednesday hybrid.
So can I just make a suggestion that if we, let's say the governor follows suit and delays the opening, would we anticipate that week would be, whatever week, let's say it gets delayed, whatever week it would be early dismissals? We would just follow the same thing, but just during that week. Does that make sense? I just want parents to know and families to know, like, okay, it might not be August 31st, but it's November, oh my goodness, September 14th, and we're still doing a full week of early so do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think the issue with the half days was so students can get used to the social distancing and wearing their masks, and the teachers can get used to the cleaning. So I think all of those concerns would still be there regardless of if it's at the end of the month or, the middle of the
I would agree. I want to make sure that we could still do, like, if we still did that, so whether it's this day or this day, parents will know, okay, maybe there's no formal calendar yet, but it's going to be then, it's still going to be early dismissal. It's still, the same pattern, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So then approach the motion this way. Well, we have to decide whether we're going to have an August 27th board meeting. But you could put a little rider on this motion and just say, based on the, if there is an adjustment by the governor, the calendar will be adjusted appropriately to the first week as early dismissals. Because we won't have a choice about if he sets the start date.
Right.
Now, there's one other thing I wanted to mention about the calendar. Our calendar, this one that you're looking at, has 995
Hey,
hours.
guys, I need your charger.
This calendar has 995 hours, and it's for 181 days, and the state is only requiring 177 days. So our calendar for our children allows us some flexibility.
Was issued today. I don't know if I understood it correctly. It sounds like Lamont wants to give the superintendents the ability to have flexibility for the amount of hours and days in school this year. Is that?
That's what I was talking about, Megan. But we're keeping this, in compliance with a regular schedule. Some school districts have cut back to 177 days. We had 184 student days. We cut back to 181 days. And so we cut back 3 days because that's what he said we could do. But if we had to make some other adjustments, we could. But I would always check with the board and we'll see what we're doing, because the calendar, in my opinion, has to be approved by the board.
So do we have a motion to approve the calendar adjustments for 2021 as presented? Kristen, Narca? Okay. All in favor of the current calendar? Any opposed? Motion passes. Oh, that'll be a fun monthly item, I believe. But has to be done. I mean, what are we gonna do, right? Okay, moving on to new business. Item number 1 is a court ruling related to IDEA eligibility extended to age 22.
I just gave you some reading information. This means that special ed students used to be able to, go to age 21, but now this indicates people want them to go to age 22. And just as a sidebar, the state used to have programs when we educated the students until age 21. They used to have some state programs in the past where students could enter. They've cut back on those, but parents are looking for things. So there's update on guidance. There's just that there's a United States District Court to work with challenging this. And then there's the Shipman and Goodman analysis of the concerns that they have and the decisions. And the idea is, if not appealed, it could potentially cost the state tens of millions of dollars or more in compensatory education costs, and restructure the entire state framework by which school districts and state agencies work. And please, as you know, we have some students that are grade 12 plus, and they're continuing based on special ed needs, which is rightly so for transitional programs, but some of those programs can cost as much as 1% of our budget. So to add another year, it increases, there could be some financial increases based on that. That's only for information purposes. You can read it at your leisure.
Okay, item number 2, policy and forms, number 5111, admission and placement. It's a first reading.
There's just some language in there that has been changed. This is a first reading. In the second reading, we will give you another copy. There's also forms and other types of things that are in there, but this is just the CABE sample policy for the updates with admission and placement.
Any discussion on that? Okay. We'll move it ahead to the second reading for next meeting. Item number 3 is policy number 5112, age of attendance. Is the first reading as well.
Yes.
I didn't see anything that stood out when I read it. Maybe we'll have another go at it for second reading anyway. Okay. Item number 4, policy number 6172, spot 61, district learning plan. It's a first reading. Or distance, sorry. No, is it district or, yeah, it's district learning plan.
Distance learning. That's a typo, distance learning.
Sorry.
Sorry to pick that up. This is not a required policy, but I thought it might be interesting to just read through what they indicate for distance learning.
Did anybody have any thoughts of, as they kind of compare between what we've discussed and read through our plan versus what they suggest? I thought it was pretty spot on. Nothing really stood out for me. It's nice when they keep things a little vague and shortened, the words to muck up. So I appreciated that, but we can discuss whether we feel like we need something like that as a policy. We'll see what other, districts are doing with that. I'll keep an eye on that too.
One question I did have on this, and this is a topic for another year maybe. I've had, we've seen a lot of questions out there about if in lieu of snow days, we're going to go to distance learning. And one of the as it relates to this policy, you know, if we're just doing distance learning for COVID, then we probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time on having a policy. If it's intended that this is going to be something we're going to do down the road, I think that's when we would really need to look at something like this. So not sure. I'm sure you guys have talked about this up until this point.
There's talk out there that certainly would, if we get to, you know, we had 2 years ago, I think we had 12 cancellations because of weather, Megan. And if we get to a late day, maybe we might want to see if we can count a distance learning. I have to check with some of the rules and regulations on that. It hasn't come up in my discussions with the superintendents yet. I haven't seen a definitive statement, but it's an interesting concept.
I think my only concern would be, because I love the idea of it, is that in Voluntown, most people lose power and internet. So I think that would be, I don't know, you know, that's a hard, like, what would that look like? I think I'm for it. I love summertime. I'm sure other people do too, but what would that look like? I would need a really clear plan on that for people.
Isn't Rhode Island going that way?
I think so. And, you know, and then you think about, and as I digress, it's very late, but you think about kids who, you know, my kids get left with my mother and father. They are not very tech savvy. It's difficult. So I think, you know, on snow days when kids have to stay home and grandma and grandpa are watching them. And so I think, but yes, Rhode Island, yes, we are moving in some direction. I'm not quite sure, but some direction.
Okay, food for thought for sure. Policy number 9321, spot 2. This is item number 5, remote electronic board of education meetings. That's an interesting topic.
Yes, I have to change that policy to bylaw. That's a bylaw.
It's a bylaw, yeah.
And it's just some guidelines for remote board meetings.
Okay, well, that's, in terms of bylaws, you know, what is that in difference from a policy, just to refresh my memory of?
The bylaw is a board operating procedure. And if you look on the policy book at our website, it's, you know, a bylaw and board action. So I'll have to check that again for the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, so item number 6 is personnel.
Yes, motion to accept the retirement of Ellen Maloney.
I'll make a motion to accept the retirement.
This is Kathy.
So Megan, you made the motion. Kathy, you made the second?
Yep, I'm on a phone now.
Thank you. And we can hear you better.
Okay,
Okay, all in favor to accept the retirement of Ellen, so sadly, with sadness. Ellen Maloney. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Now, there's supposed to be a comma there, staff assignments. And Megan asked a question about the staff assignment list. And things change very rapidly, but bear with me as I go through this to give you a summary of where we stand right now. A posting for the opening in 4th grade was completed, and Kayla Barber, who is currently teaching 1st grade, has been placed in this 4th grade teaching position. We now have a posting for an opening in 1st grade and plan to fill this position for the opening of school. We first have to see if anybody wants to transfer into that. And then we are in the final stages of completing a posting for a full-time paraprofessional with special services at NFA. NFA requires the partner schools to hire a non-certified staff to comply with any IEP requirements. This is significantly different from other schools that provide paraprofessionals that are paid for with our special ed program account number 1200-320 for professional services. So the school district employs this person, and we pay a professional services account to the school district. There is a need for temporary bus monitors to help with social distancing on school buses, and a temporary custodian is also needed for additional cleaning in all areas and to help clean playground equipment to comply with cleanliness guidelines as listed in our Voluntown reopen plan. So these are all of the things that are happening for staffing, and we're actively pursuing a number of positions. This is where we stand right now. Now, Megan, you had some questions earlier in the meeting.
Yeah, I noticed there was no, the speech language pathologists were not on that. So I didn't know, I mean, I saw the one, I didn't see any other resignations, but I was wondering if they're still accounted for. And then obviously the first grade teacher, how close, I guess, are filling that position with the school year in a couple weeks.
Yes, we plan to complete that position.
Do you have somebody internally that has expressed interest?
Well, we have the posting that goes until Monday, and quite frankly, if we have an internal transfer, then we have to review whether we're going to put that person in first grade. Then we're going to have to hire somebody to replace the person that's transferring. It's like a chain reaction of things. But we have some people that are on our list. We have some very fine substitutes. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that in executive session. Personnel in executive session.
Okay, are we done with that item, Adam?
Yes, unless
Okay.
there's questions.
Item number 7 is policy regulation and forms, number 4000 spot 1.
Yes, that's the harassment policy. This must be implemented for this school year. This is a first reading, and we'll be reviewing the wording and that and other things, but I needed to get this out to the board because we will be doing some professional development. It's a first reading. Okay.
Okay, first reading, that's fine. That was a long one, so we'll chew on that for till next meeting. Okay, that concludes our new business items. So the suggestions for next meeting, the next meeting is Thursday, September 10th, so put it on your calendars with the option, if needed, to do a second meeting.
On August 27th.
Yeah, on the 27th, I was trying to get a date. It's the 27th would be the second meeting of the month. So that would be basically a couple days before school started if we need one.
There may be some things that come up that we might have to discuss with you. And it could be a short meeting, but I will have to consult with Kate and let you know as we go through some of the things that we're doing, if there's a need to have a special meeting, or do we just schedule this and say we're going to have this with a few items, because it would probably be related to the reopening if there's any last minute things that pop up. And I will tell you, I expect to go into school on Tuesday morning and have several changes from what's happening. And I know that, you know, some of you in education, you've experienced the continuous changes and adjustments that we've had to make. So that would be Thursday, August 27th for a special meeting.
Okay, are we just planning now on doing that?
Did you hear that, Kate?
I didn't hear it. Did you hear it, Amy?
Are we just gonna go ahead and do that meeting, or are you gonna put out a notice?
Kate, how would you want to approach this? I mean, if we have a couple of days beforehand. If people put it in their schedule, we would have to notify the public a day in advance, 24 hours, but I think that we would do it sooner than that. Could we have people pencil it in, and then Kate will be able to decide if we need a meeting and then confirm it with you?
That sounds fine to me.
Is that, Kate, is that right?
I think that's reasonable. I mean, I don't want to gum up people's schedules, but I want everyone here to be aware that we might have to do it based on whatever comes our way. So,
Okay.
all right, we'll pencil it in. So I think, and again, it goes along with personnel staff items. I don't know if they're outstanding items, if we have to make motions to approve certain things.
Not right now, but there may be on the 27th.
Right, okay. Okay, so pretty much reviewing the policies that were all first readings. And, you know, there'll obviously be COVID-19 updates and reopening updates, budget preparation updates for the
Milk,
next meeting.
can you bring me up the wine? We had a
So-
cow spider last, I heard that before.
Do we have a motion to move into executive session,
And include Amy Supaletto.
including Amy?
Yes, in the motion.
Motion.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries to move into executive session at 8:57 PM.